joined by Leonor Colon today, who is the Senior Director of International and Domestic Players Operations for the MLBPA.
Okay, so I'm actually managing director now of international and domestic player operations. I focus primarily, me and my team, on games that are played out of the major league ballparks when we host games in Mexico or in Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic or London. And we make sure that all the working conditions and all the players' rights that we negotiated to over bargaining for these games to occur for players take place properly. In addition to that, we also focus on our joint programming with Major League Baseball on an array of things to really help our players with additional resources so they can maximize their time as a player on and off the field.
Wow, that's a big responsibility, it seems like. But it's great. I mean, you're involved with the players' rights and managing all of that. So let me just ask you how, obviously you've been in the industry for a long time. From what I see, you've been in the industry for at least 21 years, possibly, is what it looks like, which is hard to believe. But I guess that you've stepped up as as time has gone by. So maybe let's talk a little bit about how you entered into this world of baseball, and maybe you didn't even start there. So let's talk about the journey of how you got there.
Yeah, so I was always somebody that really wanted to work in sports. It actually, my first passion was basketball. So I did start out at Madison Square Garden, but then I was given this opportunity to interview at Major League Baseball, and I was fortunate enough to get the job. And I really started to have a passion for baseball. And sports has always been around my family. Grew up with a lot of boys in my family, so we were always watching games. So it's almost as if I didn't have a choice. It kind of geared me organically to doing that. And I spent a lot of time kind of learning about the game, all the ins and outs. While I was with the league, I was an assistant to labor attorneys that were working part of the collective bargaining agreement. And then I wanted to work and focus more on working with a team. I wanted to see what it was like to work with a team. So I was fortunate enough to to get an opportunity at the New York Mets. And that's when I really was hands-on with the game and really working with our players under our leadership in the baseball operations department. And my passion for the game grew more, and my passion to assist our ball players, especially our Latin players, is where it all originated. And then my journey in learning what the union did in terms of protecting players' rights and helping them navigate through their professional career is where my passion really kind of excelled. And then I moved over to the union, and I've been excited to do all the work that I've done and work with players directly and our entire team at the Players Association.
That's really cool, being able to kind of be involved in understanding the legal part of it, and then having the opportunity to work hand in hand with people, right? So a lot of the players that you're working with on a regular basis, I guess I'm kind of intrigued by that. I guess I wouldn't even think twice about that necessarily. Somebody comes into whatever sports profession and they probably don't have an understanding of rights and things like that. Is that a challenge, like being able to talk to them about these things, or kind of like that I guess like layman's talk of what they're entitled to or whatever? Like how does that work for you?
Well, I've been fortunate enough. I mean, our union has existed for a really long time, and they have really started out making sure players were aware that the union existed, that we are a resource for them. So when I joined the union, a lot of that groundwork was already laid there. They kind of knew who we were. And what I wanted to focus on was really providing additional resources to the extent we can for our Latin players, because it's so challenging to, as a young professional athlete, come from one country to the next, and then have to be able to compete at the highest level, maintain there, and support your family and support your surroundings, and just really be able to navigate through all the kind of differences of just working in a different country. So that's where I gravitated to, and was just with additional people, just really focusing on the resources we could provide for them to help them with anything they needed as they go through their journey in their professional career.
I love that that's a nuanced place that you kind of got into. And of course, being a Latina, that's important to you as well. But you're right, with cultural and country differences and language barriers and all of that, that's just a lot of hurdles probably, beyond just like you said, having the groundwork already set of the union, there are those additional things that they could definitely use some help with. So that's a wonderful place to be. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned growing up around, guys in your family. So why don't you talk a little bit about your background and where you grew up and your heritage and, you know, any support that you got from there? It sounds like you probably did get a lot, actually.
Yeah, I grew up in New York City and then in the tri-state area. When I lived in New York City, I was raised in Hell's Kitchen, and at that time, it wasn't the best of neighborhoods. So we stayed with our family quite a bit. We had a lot of our family support, which is really helpful. I was the only girl amongst about 10, 12 cousins that are all boys. So we just played, we worked together. But I was really fortunate with at that time when I grew up in Hell's Kitchen, they were organizations that would be able to provide support for kids to be able to have after school programs or clean up city parks so that kids could have a safe place to play. So it was something that I grew up, was passionate about playing sports, all of them at that point. But that's kind of how the journey started, and watching games. And we would only have a lot of people living in an apartment, and there's only one TV, and it was only
Right.
all day long. So I really didn't have a choice.
People
Um,
forget about those days, right?
yeah, yes. Um, and that's really how my journey to kind of being passionate about wanting to be in sports started.
And from there, as you entered further education, where did you end up going?
So I went to college at Iona College. I wanted to actually be a doctor, and my circumstances were a little challenging. I had to come home and help my mom and help my family. I grew up with a single mother. And that's when I said, all right, well, at least let me find, if I can't continue to go this path, how can I find a way where I can be working in an arena that I'm passionate about. So that's how I started working at Madison Square Garden.
I think that's such a great story. I've spoken to women who are in other sports fields like golf, and and it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, but so many young kids today don't actually maybe realize that you could have a passion for whatever, baseball, football, golf, whatever the sport is, but might not be talented enough to be an athlete, right? But there's so many other areas you can be involved in and still be a part of it. And I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about that and kind of what that can look like for young kids today as they're kind of looking at their options for not just being the athlete.
Yeah, actually, it's something that I work on a lot, and I speak to a lot of people who are looking to kind of enter the sports world, even if they're current professional athletes. I think a lot of people don't know there's so many different areas and jobs that one can kind of gravitate to. And I think the job market in sports is actually growing. There's different areas of opportunity, whether it's if you want to be a coach or if you want to be in business, if you want to be in communications, if you want to be in PR, if you want to be in marketing, all of that, if this is an area that one likes, there is an array of job opportunity for people to get into. And I always advise them, just find your particular passion. If it's philanthropy, if it's really business marketing, if it's you want to be a general manager one day, just kind of navigate and try to study and know as much as you can, and your path will open up for you without you even knowing.
Yeah, right. What about being a Latina in the sports industry? Have you felt any challenges of that or any differences? I mean, you were raised with so many boys around you. It seems like they just kind of embraced you as one of their own. So I'm wondering exactly like how what your story is about that in the career world.
Yeah, you know what? I think when you don't see a lot of people that look like you, it is challenging, right? Whether you're a woman, and if you're then a Latin woman, you kind of don't have a lot of mentors that can help you pave the way. So you're trying to kind of navigate cautiously in a male dominated industry. But for me, it was always about staying true to who I am. I am a Latina. I'm proud to be a Latina. There were times people would tell me to wear pearls instead of hoops, and I'm still wearing my hoops. You know, so it's about knowing who you are. Exactly. It's about knowing who you are and not losing yourself, although you're really passionate in a particular area. And that's the one thing that, you know, my mother always helped keep me grounded in that regard. But, you know, I've been fortunate enough too. Our membership is like 28% international, and a lot of them are Latino. So I've worked with a lot of our players, our members who are Latino. So I felt there was a home. I was somebody's sister, somebody's friend. So, you know, for that regard, I felt comfortable in kind of my journey through my career.
Yeah, you had a little bit of a, I guess, for lack of a better word, a family feeling. If you could, you know, talk to people who can have a similar-ish background as you can totally relate to some of the things that they're going through. You know, apparently being, you know, raised by a single mom as well, I'm sure, you know, so that kind of gives you a nice symbiosis to work with some of these people.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we talk a little bit about the youth program, because that's really the one thing that kind of started this whole conversation, actually. And I'd love to talk about that. We're always thinking about, you know, how we can help our community and young kids out there. And, you know, so I'd love to hear more about what's going on.
Yeah. So we started the Youth Development Foundation in 2015, and it was both our parties, Major League Baseball and the Players Association. And what we wanted to do is we really wanted to collectively work together to really find ways to really assist communities and kids playing our game, whether it's baseball or softball, and providing opportunity for them to do that. So ever since then, we have really been lucky enough to give over $25 million in grants to across the United States. And that ranges from capital improvement, just providing lights at a stadium, a ballpark, fixing a baseball stadium, a softball stadium, providing equipment for little league teams that may not, all the parents can't afford all that stuff, because unfortunately our sport is expensive compared to some of the other sports. So we started this because we really wanted to do more grassroots level. We have to be able, in order to get more people in our game, whether it's fans, whether it's kids being able to play, they have to start somewhere. So we really kind of collectively work towards that goal. And we've been, ever since, been extremely successful in helping a lot of communities, because that's where it really starts. And diversity was a big thing for us as well. We wanted to make sure that we weren't just giving grants to particular communities or individuals. We wanted to make sure that we had diversity at the source of what we were going to do in terms of trying to build our game from grassroots level for kids to be able to play.
Yeah, that's amazing, being able to lower the barrier to entry to getting these young kids in there and having you know, exposure to it.
First initiated our foundation. Ken Griffey was named our ambassador, and he's been our ambassador since. And we've been able to host one jewel event called the Hank Aaron Invitational that happens in July. And it's for 2 weeks, and we invite kids between the ages of 13 and 18, and they have an opportunity to work with former players, really learn the skills of the game, learn mentorship, advice from some of our former players. And we recently added another event for the older kids in the second week, that 44 of them will be chosen to be able to play against each other at a major league ballpark, which in Atlanta, so at Truist Park, where the Atlanta Braves play. So that's been one of our dual events, and we're now excited that you're going to have our first ever Swingman Classic, which is really what Ken Griffey was really particular and really wanted. and it's hosting the HBCU, the best athletes. There's a selection committee, and this is going to happen where these young men will be able to play against each other right on the onset of when our All-Star game will take place this year in Seattle at T-Mobile Park. So we're really excited that we've all been working hard. This is going to be the first one. We're hoping that this can continue moving forward, and we could really highlight HBCUs and really highlight Black players in the game and give them a platform for them to be shown and highlighted in a way that's never been.
Is this an opportunity for them to be looked at by colleges and universities, or this is not, this would be a format for that kind of
the HBCUs, they're already in college. So this is going to be, we're just getting like the best of them from the historic Black colleges and universities. So we're just bringing them together and just providing this platform for the world to see the best. And then there will be a lot of people, whether it's scouts, whether it's clubs, just an opportunity for them to play, to be seen, and for us to celebrate an event that has never happened like this before.
That is awesome. That's so exciting. So this will be the first one, you're saying?
This will be the first this summer, July 7th. So it's our second Jewel event that we are doing, and we're hoping to continue this and grow.
That's so cool. You mentioned, I like that you said the word, mentorship, and I kind of wanted to revert back to you. Did you have any mentors as you were growing up that you can think about that were super influential on your path, or any time you needed some help with anything?
Yeah, I had a few. Look, my number one mentor was my mother. I mean, I think she's like the key that kept me together at times when I really, really needed it. But professionally, I had a lot of people I worked with throughout my career. Johnny Rico's one of them. Lou Melendez is another one, where they helped me kind of understand the game from a different perspective, a different lens, and they would advise me on how to go. Kim Ang was another great mentor for me. I was lucky enough to have worked with her and known her for many years. And, I started out wanting to be a GM. That was my goal. And I saw the path wasn't leading to it. So I said, maybe I'm going to pivot and work with players instead. So I've been fortunate to have mentors, and I still have mentors that are outside, executives in different industries, because I don't want to be so limited just to our industry, that I really rely on, and I seek advice from them so they can help me kind of keep my vision of how to move the needle and create a path for others to kind of follow.
Yeah, it's good to have people outside of your path, right? Because it opens your eyes up to something you're missing, right? Don't be so short-sighted. So that's awesome. What would you say is the one thing that you absolutely love about what you do every day? What makes you happy about your role?
It does. You know what? I think my favorite part of my job is that in what I do, I have the ability to be creative, to help people, not just baseball players, but really help them and empower them to help people in their communities, people on and off the field. And because we get to work with our players, see what they're passionate about, see how they're so disciplined and committed to what they do for a living, and then see that they know their impact on people. And it's about putting a puzzle together that fits for them to be able to go back home and give back, whether it's a food drive, whether it's going and giving equipment to people, whether it's buying Christmas gifts. That to me, and just hearing players see how they want to use their voice. But sometimes, they're so busy with stuff, they want to create a path to do that. So that's what gets me up in the morning, helping them be the best version of themselves, but knowing that they have an impact that could really help and change the world.
That's great. So they can come up to whomever, like with maybe an idea of what they want to do or serve their community, and you guys can kind of help them figure out the trajectory for how to make that happen. That's really great, actually. That's amazing. That's like a lot of tentacles reaching out and doing really good stuff.
Yeah, and it's tailored to each individual, right? And it's about helping their family. How could they have something sustainable, for their family, and how could they take care of everybody they want to take care of? So we are very fortunate to be able to have to work with players because they are truly inspiring people. Mm-hmm.
What about anything that you would say is maybe like disheartening or tough for you every day? Like what's a tough challenge for you in your career? Maybe there's nothing.
I think no, you know what? I think big, right? I can see I have a large vision, and I think sometimes you have to be patient to get it right, to be able to execute that vision because of the outcome is going to be so great. And sometimes I want to do it a lot faster than but there's a lot of things that have to take place. So I always tell people practicing patience is the number one challenge in working in any job. But making sure that your vision stays committed, and if you have to pivot, just make sure you keep working towards that goal. So I would say that, you know, I want things done yesterday,
Yeah.
so I can move on to something else. And it doesn't always happen like that, but the outcome, it'll all turn out well.
It'll happen, but yeah, you're right. Taking time and the patience is always difficult when you have an amazing vision. You just want it to happen so fast, and you feel like why can't this happen any faster? Like it should be so easy, but yeah, I'm sure there's always also red tape and all kinds of things that you have to get through in order to, you know, make things happen in the right way. So,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say is one of the things that you're super proud about that you've done?
I think, you know, I try to do something once a year that I'm really, really excited about. I think most recently is we were able to open up an office in the Dominican Republic. It's our first international office. I think the work that we're going to be able to do for our Latin players, having a home base there, is going to be really significant. Also, just having our minor league players become part of our union members. Now we can really start to help and provide support to players and yeah, a lot more than what we do already. And then I think the one thing that I to this day probably changed the way I look at life was the trip to Cuba, where we brought our Cuban players for the first time since they defected back, and seeing them see their families that they haven't seen in years was something that kind of grounded myself to really appreciate how lucky I am to be an American, number one, and have everything that I have, because there are a lot of people that don't. So opportunity like that, working with players, going to their home countries, seeing how they live, seeing how the struggle they have just to follow their baseball dream. It's very humbling to see. So I've seen it from various countries, whether it's Colombia, Venezuela, Cuba, Dominican. And that to me it's been a beautiful journey to watch.
That's awesome. That's an amazing story. I think, you know, listening to you, like these international experiences are very eye-opening, and I like that you've mentioned a couple of them that are recent things that you've done. Do you guys have plans to open other international offices at all, or are you going to see what happens with this one, or what?
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I would love to have an office everywhere, in every country our players come from. But that's in my fantasy world.
Right, right.
No, I think right now, you know, like with anything, we really want to do a really great job providing support in the Dominican Republic, because most of our international players that sign, they end up in the Dominican Republic, whether they're going to play Winter League or when they're entering. Right. So it is the most organic place for us to have an international office. So we're just kind of looking to really work well there, provide the support we need for our players, and then we can look to expand based on needs.
Okay. What else did I want to ask you? What would you say to other Latinas who are looking to get into a career that is kind of male dominated or viewed male dominated? What would be some words of wisdom?
I would say find your passion, you'll find your purpose. Be patient, be true to yourself, don't compromise, and always continue to be open to learning. Never stop learning. Perfect. If you got to go back to school, if you have to go take a course, just keep keep it going and keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward.
Our Youth Development Foundation is kind of one of the key things that I'm passionate about, because it provides a lot of communities an opportunity through a grant making program. And we just want to let the world know that this grant exists, and we are here to assist communities in an array of areas, whether it's capital improvement, whether it's uniforms, whether it's lighting for fields. And I think we just want everyone to know that they can apply. We have a whole team that'll help them with the grant process. No request is too little or too big, but just knowing that there are resources out there for people to take advantage of is, to us, a priority right now.